guys, it's Kate and I hope you're having a great day today. I'm here with another watercolor and my Mei Liang palette, and I thought we could do some fun little doodles. So I'm going to do sort of an under the sea painting with some very loose shapes that will be for some sea creatures and stuff like that. So I'm going to do some basic shapes in yellow and add some more colors, but I'm going to do some seashells which kind of come up into a cone. I'm going to do a little starfish, and I'm doing wet over dry right now, but I'm going to be getting very wet in here. So I'm going to go into next, let's see, I'm going to do the fresh blue and mix a little bit of this yellow into it to get kind of a blue green. I'm going to let it bleed up against these shapes here so that they're loose, and I'm going to kind of alternate back and forth between color and doodle shapes. So I'm just going to go around this so that it doesn't dry quickly. It's my main thing here. So I'm going to add plenty of water to my page just to keep my edges nice and wet. And we'll have some interesting marks on here. I'm going to dip back into this yellow ochre to mix and make kind of a blue-green color. And have that coming down through the page. Go back into this blue and add a little bit more, and we'll get kind of a nice little variety of stuff going on here. Now I like where this is kind of going, where we have just some sort of vague shapes there that we can kind of doodle on later. So I'm going to go back into this yellow, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this madder red to make kind of a peachy pink color. And I'm going to do kind of a seashell shape here. I'm going to do the little oval and then have it kind of come out at the end and have it go right next to that little starfish. I'm just going to dip my brush into some water, loosen up the edge a little bit, drop in some more color here. And this is pretty dry right now, so I'm just going to kind of let this bleed together a bit. Now I'm going to go back into this blue-green, come in around our starfish, and just keep going with this fun little background. We're just going to have some vague shapes here. I'm going to do the vague outline to my seashell. And I'm going to come back into this darker blue straight out of the pan and just add some of that back in here. We have another kind of fun seashell shape kind of happening here, but I'm going to go back into this madder red, and I'm going to maybe trace around that a little bit and just darken it, and we'll have that red someplace else here on the painting. And then maybe another little shell kind of coming up from the bottom. Now I'm using it over green, so it's a complementary color. So it's going to kind of neutralize a bit, but that's fine. I'm going to go back into this yellow ochre and kind of reinforce this starfish again. And I'm going to have another starfish maybe coming out from the top here. Just very simple. Now I'm going to just grab some of this blue and make some dots around here. Some of them will spread out more than others because I have some spots here that are a little bit dry. I'm going to grab a smaller brush and go back into this red. Just add some little hints of color there. Same thing with this shell. I'm just going to drag it with my brush to soften the inside edge a little bit. And I'm going to kind of spread that out. Now I think I can add some yellows in here. And we'll just add some fun texture, kind of coming in here along with these blues, and just give us some nice variety, almost like a second coat of paint. Now some of this that I'm going over is still pretty damp, so I might have some cauliflower effect, but I'm kind of embracing that texture today on here. And I'm also, you know, just going over some of these pretty loosely a couple of times, and you can see some of this paint sort of reactivating underneath my brush and sort of moving to the side a bit, which is totally fine with me for this. I'm just going to have some fun using this as kind of a doodly background, and then I'm also going to cut back into this seashell shape a bit and this starfish shape. Narrow up that leg again. And since we're working with blue-green on this ocean background, it all kind of just blends together. I kind of like that. I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to leave this too. I like some of that bleed through. All right, I don't want to overwork this, and I've got a ton going on here, so I'm going to stop where I am now and then let this dry. So we are all dry, and we have some very interesting shapes to doodle on here. They're very loose, very messy, lots of texture. It's my favorite. So what I'm going to do is use my thicker fine liner. This is the number 1, and it's a little bit of a fine marker tip. And I'm going to do the outlines of each of my elements here in this thicker tip. And then we're going to add some more doodles and some texture and patterns around and inside of these in a finer tip. So that way it's going to make them kind of pop more toward the front. So I'm going to start with this starfish here, and I'm going to go around where I have the biggest part of my yellow paint. And what's going to be nice about this is that it's going to have some of that bleed outside, which makes it nice and loose, but then you're going to have your hard shape here that will be what kind of tells you what it is. And so I've got my other starfish here that I'm going to have, and I'm going to work on this shell first. So this is kind of a big blob right now, but I'm going to fix that. So I'm going to follow this general curve, and the shell is going to be kind of facing out to the corner. So what I'm going to do is add a scalloped edge here. And then each of these lines I'm going to have coming pretty much into a point here. So you get that nice shell texture. And then I'm going to have it kind of come to a termination point there. And add another little pattern behind it so it looks a little bit like a fun shell. And I'm going to do that same thing up here. So we have the outer edge of our shell right there and right here. And I'm just going to go around and add our little scalloped edges. So we had this one kind of come out into another shape behind it, behind the starfish. So I went ahead and kept it just like that. Lastly, I'm going to work on these shells. So this one I'm going to start here, I think, and then I'm going to have it come up. You know what? It's easier to pull toward me. Okay, and then outline it right here, and we've got the bottom of it. So now I'm going to do that sort of crown area. Just like that. And there is one shell. Now I'm going to do this shell a little bit differently because I'm going to follow my paint outlines a little bit more. And it might even be sort of like seeing this shell from the back. So we'll have another shell right there. And this is the start of a very fun doodle. So next I'm going to grab my number 10 white jelly roll, and I'm going to add some circles to the inside of our starfish. And I'm going to make them get smaller as they come out from the center. And I'm going to do the same thing up here, kind of have that center circle peeking out, and then adding some texture in the form of these dots coming down the side. Now for this, I'm going to add some fine lines and a pattern going down the side of the shell. Just like that. I'm going to add white to all of these doodles. So I'm going to add a white circle shape to the edge of each of these scallops. And then I'm just going to do a little dotted line. And for the end of the shell, I'm going to color in those little sections with white, just like that. Now I'm going to do that up here too, and that way everything goes together and is cohesive, and then we can work on some of these wonderful textures in the back. All right, I've got our other shells done, and I just followed the contour on pretty much everything here, and especially this one, and I really love how this one looks with the white over the dark background, and it really makes it pop from the background too. So I'm going to put my jelly roll away and we'll get started on the next section. So I'm grabbing my number 1 tip again because I want to add a couple more things to this. I've got these two shells kind of right next to each other and two starfish next to each other, and it's cool and all, but I want to kind of mix it up a little bit with some other elements. So I want something kind of rounded over in this area and maybe up here too, and I thought some of these blooms kind of look like they could be sand dollars. So I'm going to sketch in a couple of those kind of underneath if they need to be. And sand dollars are pretty cool because they have that sort of star shape in the middle, and that will kind of repeat some of these starfish shapes too, and it'll break up these two shells. So they'll do just sort of double duty. So I have these blooms here. I am going to turn these into sand dollars coming out from the side of our page. So I'm going to make the little star shape and fill that in black. And then there's a little sort of hollow that comes out from the point of every star edge, just like that. This one kind of kisses the edge, but I'll just work with that. So I've got another one I can do here, maybe a little bit smaller, just like that. And I'm trying to find some other sort of round shapes. I'm going to go ahead and put another one right here. And it's going to go right behind that shell. Now I'm going to have sort of my star coming out like this. So I'm going to have two of the edges, and I want to make sure they're fatter. And then one kind of poking out from here and one down there. And that will be our third little sand dollar that's kind of behind everything. Okay, so I broke out these colored fine liners and I grabbed the green, and it's kind of a dark green. And I think we have some really interesting shapes back here that could be maybe some plant life, maybe some grasses of some kind, maybe sea anemones, urchins, I don't know. There's so many different shapes out there. So I'm going to just kind of follow along with some of these watercolor textures. And I'm just making it a nice jagged shape that goes right along with the watercolor. These sort of inside spots, I'm going to color those and make them dark. I really love how this looks so far. That's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to put this green back and work on another color. One of the things that we have kind of going on here is we don't really have a lot of contrast right now in our sand dollars, and we have a lot of that with our starfish and our shells and everything. So what I'm going to do is grab my pink Posca pen, and I'm going to add something here that's nice and pink and doodly that we can kind of use to bring them back into focus with the other elements. So I'm going to start by going around these little doodads, and then I'm going to follow the inside of the shape here, and I think I might add some dots. So it has some kind of texture and some additional color that's different than just that background, and it will bring these back to the front with the rest. I think we're also going to need some white. That's a pretty light pink, and it's not as opaque as I wanted. So I'm going to go over this in white also. And I think that works a lot better. You can really see a lot more here. So it makes it pop a lot more. I'm going to add some kind of loose outlines here. And I really like how those look now. I'm just going to finish this one up, and then I think our sand dollars are done. So for my background and some of these lighter areas, I'm taking my ivory colored Posca, and I'm just going to add a very light pattern of tiny dots to kind of bring everything together. And this is just going to go on the lightest parts. in a couple of different areas of the painting. So I'm just going to be going into some of these shapes here. And I'm going to pick something light down here, probably this area. And I have these sort of natural borders set out by my scraggly lines with that green fine liner. So that works out really nicely. And then I'm going to put some along here. This is so much fun to do. I really, really love this little project. Okay, so there's just a couple other things. I filled in some shapes here that were kind of natural parts of the painting, but it isn't repeated anywhere else. So I'm going to kind of make that up on this side. So I'm just going to kind of make some random shapes here, filled in, almost to make it kind of grainy. They're going to vary in size and shape. And that way, it has something that kind of goes with it that matches. And I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to grab this red glitter Posca. And I want something else kind of bright and warm to go in here that is also sort of reddy pink. This is really, it goes down kind of like a pink color. And I'm going to add a little bit of pattern to a couple of these other spots just to give it some more contrast and to bring that warm color to a few other spots. And this is just kind of, for me, bringing the painting together. And they're very loose, just sort of scattered around. They could be bubbles or anything. And they're going to also add a little bit of sparkle, which I really like. So I've got it coming across there. I'm going to have it up in this area a little bit too. I'm going to pick this corner here. Maybe have it coming out next to that starfish. Maybe a couple coming out from the side. That looks pretty good. And I might as well just do them in this other little section here. I'm going to grab this ivory again and do this little bit of lighter green coming through here for my last place of pattern. And I think I've hit just about everywhere with something. And we love hitting stuff with some kind of pattern or doodle. At least I do. All right. I really love how this looks. And I think I want to maybe add just, just one more thing. And that is something kind of coming up from the bottom or from the sides, a little bit of kelp. And this is going to be in the front. And it's going to kind of weave through the painting. So I think I might have the first one kind of coming through here. And I'm just sort of having it trail out from the side. And I'm going to color these in. And this is going to be a little bit of extra contrast. Yeah, I really like how that looks. So I'm going to have another one coming right up from the bottom. I'm going to have it go behind the sand dollar and maybe coming right through here. Just a few of these coming out in these different areas. And this is also kind of tying everything together. I'm going to have another one kind of coming out from the side here, meeting behind the shell, and maybe curling right up that way and coming out from the side here. This looks great. I tell you what, some messy painting can sure yield some really fun results. So I'm going to give you the close-up here. And we have just some really fun doodles on this one. And this was a lot of fun to make. You just go nuts with your paintbrush. Wet and wet, wet on dry, who cares? And you get a really fun little watercolor doodle. And it's so relaxing to do. I really hope that you enjoyed this video today. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I hope you followed along with your supplies if you could, or if you didn't, I hope it gave you some ideas. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep creating.